This is
Naked Plain.
M.I.P.
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson. Get woke.
Ladies and gentlemen, here with his book, which is more timely than ever. He was just asking me on the way in, though. He was worried whether or not Trump would still even be president when he got here. Now that a majority of Americans are even saying they support removal from office. Never thought we'd see that come so quickly. He is the author of Dirty Rubles, An Introduction to Trump and Russia. Greg Olear is here with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Good to see you, man. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you. When did you first publish this?
I wrote the book in May of 2018. It dropped, which seems like about 25 years ago. But in Trump years, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I wrote it because there were a lot of long, dense books about the subject that really went into the weeds, but there wasn't anything that connected the dots in a way that was simple. And I felt like that's what was missing in the media and in bookland. So I wanted to write something that was short and easy to follow so that if you didn't understand what was happening and why people were talking about Manafort this and Kushner that and who are all these people, you could pretty easily just pick up the book, read it in a couple hours, and be up to speed.
And really have it as a primer.
Yes.
For people to get it.
Exactly.
To get it simply. It's interesting, though, because there's some who are arguing today that Russia was still always too complex. And the reason people are latching on to impeachment removal now is because Ukraine, this one phone call, is quick and dirty and simple. People just get that immediately. Would you agree or disagree?
I think that, it's something that people can understand. First of all, it's very clearly a violation of law. It's something that mobsters do in movies, so people can understand it because Lord knows there's a lot of mob movies that people watch, and they understand the idea of, hey, you're going to do this? Well, you're going to do a little favor for me. That's a very easy thing for people to wrap their heads around. And also, you have the Ukraine. Maybe people don't know about it that much, but it's a country that had been invaded by Russia. The Crimea was part of Ukraine. Putin went in there and occupied it and took it over. So it's clearly an enemy of Russia that Trump is trying to do this with. It's not isolated from the Russia stuff at all. It's intimately part of it.
And so much so, we talk about arms for the Ukraine, but what I don't think there's been a lot of emphasis on is that when a character like Trump is on the phone with a leader from Ukraine, and this leader of Ukraine knows, he's over there in the middle of it.
Yeah.
He's not over here. He doesn't have the filter of Western media spin. He knows he's talking to a guy who can make or break him because Trump himself is a Russian asset.
Right.
So he's really talking to someone who's got a direct line to Putin saying, I need you to do something for me, and then I may buy you some time against Putin.
It's a heck of a needle to try to thread, that's for sure. And here's something people probably don't realize about the Ukrainian president, Zelensky. He was and is a comedian. He was on a TV show in Ukraine, and the premise of the TV show was that he, Zelensky, the character, was by some accident took over to be president of Ukraine and then cleaned up all the corruption. So he got elected mostly because I think people thought that he was the person that he portrayed on the TV show, which sounds familiar, right?
Another reality show kind of guy.
So it's not like this is a seasoned diplomat either doing business with Trump and Putin. It's a comedian on a TV show. It would be like
a comedian communicating with a reality show star.
Yeah.
And then up against an authoritarian ex-KGB assassin.
Exactly. No, to say that they're both overmatched.
I don't. Because will he kill me if I say he's an assassin? I don't know. Is my life in danger?
I'm still alive. My father's very concerned that the Russian mob is after me, but I think that we're okay.
All right. Well, I hope so.
This is an undisclosed location here.
Let's walk through this, and then also because you've been tweeting about Turkey.
Yeah.
And what's going on over there and that relationship. It just seems like Trump is working for every other country but the United States, right?
Yes.
But that's also because of his business interests.
It's his business interest, but remember, he's also massively in debt. So he's not coming from a position of strength with any negotiations with foreign leaders. He's coming from a position of need, which is why it was so important that he should have released his taxes so we can see just how in debt he is and to whom. Because debt is worse than somebody giving you money to do something, but somebody being in debt to somebody, you really have control over that person.
Is he in debt to Russia and to Putin and oligarchs?
We think so. We don't know. We think that's what's hiding in the taxes. Now, it's true that he went bankrupt 6 times. It's true that suddenly he had an influx of cash because Deutsche Bank was the only bank that would lend money to him. No U.S. bank would lend him money because he's a terrible person to lend money to, famously doesn't pay anybody back.
Right.
Once sued a bank because he blamed the recession on the bank, and therefore that's why he didn't pay. I mean, these crazy excuses for not paying people back. Deutsche Bank was the only bank that would lend money to him, and Deutsche Bank got busted for basically being a bank that was favorable to Russian money launderers.
Yeah.
So if you want to try to connect the dots, you can connect them. I think that his taxes are going to reveal a lot. You think about it now. He released the transcript of the call with the Ukrainian president, or rather the notes from the call with the Ukrainian president. He released it himself. And in those notes, he basically commits a crime. He released those notes before he released his taxes. So what does that tell you? What does that suggest?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what it tells you. If a criminal cops to something like that,
Yeah.
there's something worse.
Absolutely.
Because, Congresswoman Waters is going to subpoena the Deutsche Bank records.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's the last thing. He'll cop to the call. I mean, if this was a plea deal, okay, I made the call, lead of Deutsche Bank. Am I right? I mean, that's
No,
what
you're
that's,
absolutely right.
If they start cutting the deal, that's what it's going to be. I'm willing to bet you come to think of it, because we've been talking about all different scenarios. If the plea offer is resignation in exchange for Deutsche Bank and taxes off the table, I bet he'll take that, Greg.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely
I bet
right.
she'll take that, especially now we're over 50% in Fox polls. All right, so where did you start? I mean, what's the simplest, if we're going to draw a line,
Yeah.
what's point A if somebody's looking at the Russia relationship?
Well, I mean, for me personally, he got elected, and I was, like most Americans, horrified. And I thought we have to do what we can to expose this guy and get him out of office as soon as possible. How can we do this? My first instinct was that the conflict of interest would do it, because he has so many glaring conflicts of interest. I thought if the American people realize that he's stealing from them, because that's what he's doing. He's taking taxpayer money and using it to fund his activities and to exploit his business interests, which is a horrible thing. And people in this country, especially Republicans, do not like to pay taxes. They're very, very conscious about that stuff. I felt if people understood what was happening, they would turn on him. But then I did a little more research into the Russia stuff, and there was so much there that it seemed to me that that was the easiest way to remove him, to expose whatever he did on Russia. And a lot of that we don't know yet, but a lot of it we do know because it's in the Mueller report. And in the preliminary lead up to the election and then the months after during the transition, so many meetings with Russians. They lied about them constantly. They still lie about them. And we still don't really know what went on and why he felt the need to meet with these Russians, high-placed Russians, lie about it, go to great lengths to establish back channels so that the communications were not made public to the American people, which is something he's still doing when he sees Putin in person. Why did he do all this stuff? I felt like if people really stopped and looked at what he did, they would wake up and say, this is not right. Remember, Russia has been our enemy for the last, 75 years? I mean, since the end of the Second World War. And even during the Second World War, it's not like Stalin and FDR were buddies. I mean, they knew he was bad.
Frenemies.
Yeah.
In the Second World War,
Right.
Yeah. There were reports that as early as the 80s, he was being cultivated as a Russian asset.
Yep. I mean, there's rumors that maybe Ivana was some sort of plant. There's rumors that Melania is some sort of plant. Who knows? I mean, he definitely had interest in the country. He's been trying to get to break into the Moscow real estate market for a long time. And he's exactly the sort of person that the Russians target. He's arrogant. He's kind of dumb. He's easily led. He has a lot of vices. And he has money problems. and also no scruples whatsoever. So he's exactly the sort of person that historically the KGB and later the FSB would look to recruit or to turn.
Yeah, no, it's a perfect crime on their fault, on their part, and that's the business.
Yeah.
So you can't even fault them for doing their job.
No, you almost have to tip your hat to them. I mean, they're not, they're our enemies, but they're
Now it's
they're
okay
good
for
at
me
what
to
they
say
do.
that, but not for him because he says that the United States does it all over the world too. We interfere. No, that's not what I can say that. He can't say that because he's acknowledging and practically admitting if that's what they've done with him, it's okay.
Yes.
We interfere so they can interfere too.
Yeah. No, it's almost whataboutism, which is itself from the KGB playbook. Bill Clinton did this, therefore Trump can do it a million times worse, and it makes it okay somehow.
Yeah, yeah. How much do we know, though, about his indebtedness to people in Russia? How much information do we have?
We don't have enough. We have, I guess, what you would call circumstantial evidence. We know he was in debt. We know that suddenly he started buying golf courses in cash. We know that his sons went on TV and said stuff like, well, the Russians are buying, a lot of money coming in from Russia, Don Jr. said. We know that oligarchs own a lot of property in Trump Tower. We know about Rubalov, I think that's how you say his name, the oligarch who bought the $45 million Florida mansion for $90 million or whatever it was in the middle of a housing crisis, never lived there. And the reason that that's important is because real estate is a super good way to launder money. What happens is oligarch will come, deal with Trump, say, here's a bunch of money for your thing, and Trump will say, great, and then he'll flip it, or the opposite, they'll buy a property from Trump, let's say for $90 million. They sell it for $50 million. They've paid Trump $40 million, but the $50 they get back is now quote unquote clean. It's laundered. It's a legit piece of money that they can now invest in Western banks and stuff like that. Whereas the money that comes in from the criminal underworld, they can't invest. If you've seen The Wire or Breaking Bad or any of these, you have all the money. If you can't spend it, what good is it?
Yeah. What difference does it make? The question on the different categories of assets. There's the useful idiot. There's the witting. Is he witting, do you think?
I think he is, yeah.
You do?
I do. I think he's ultimately self-serving. I don't think he's an ideologue or anything like that. I think his ego is he's very needy. Yeah. So he wants everybody to like him. If you look at the video of him dancing with Jeffrey Epstein that was posted on the internet, you can see he's kind of cozying up to Epstein like, hey, buddy, hey, check out me. I can dance too. And I feel like he's like that with Putin and these dictators. He wants to be like them, and he's cozying up to them. So I don't think he looks at them and thinks, oh, Russia's where it's at. I think he thinks, hey, these guys are giving me money, therefore it's cool. And also, I kind of like the way that Putin does business. He doesn't have to worry about the free press. He can jail people that don't agree with him. Right. He can, if he wants to hang around with underage girls or whatever, he could do it. Whatever vices he wants to indulge. It's kind of a nice life, Trump thinks, I think.
He sees men that he admires, they have power.
Yes.
So he wants to emulate.
Yes.
And if he can't, or cozy, as you say, and if he can't cozy and emulate, he attacks.
Yes.
Obama.
Yeah.
That's the obsession. He can't cozy up next to Obama.
Right.
He's angry, too, that a black man has been more successful than he has.
Yeah.
Coming from nothing.
Yeah.
That's why he wants to mimic. I want a Nobel Prize. I mean, that's the only reason he wants a Nobel Prize. He wouldn't be talking about a Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
And honestly, the golden shower tape, if it exists, I don't know, probably does. I mean, think about it. Why would anybody make something like that up?
Yeah, no.
There's enough out here on him. Why would anybody have a need? Hey, let's just make up a golden shower tape. Right?
Yeah.
So my understanding is part of that was about wanting to soil the bed in the room that the Obama slept in.
Absolutely. That was in the Steele report. Yeah.
Do you
Steele
think?
dossier.
Do you think the tape exists?
I've heard there's multiple tapes.
Jesus.
I don't know if it's a pee-pee tape, quote unquote. I've heard that it's actually worse than that. That things are, underage plus violence. Again, complete hearsay. It's what I've heard from several sources that may or may not be true. So I don't want to say for sure, but that's what I've heard. I don't think we're ever going to see the tapes, and I think if the tapes come out, he'll immediately say they were doctored and this and that. Also, I don't think Trump wants to reveal a sex tape of his own because I think he's insecure about, his size.
Tiny hands.
Yeah, tiny little finger.
So you think it could be worse than that?
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
But the belief too is that Russia has the tape. They recorded the tape. I mean, so which proves that they're trying to marionette him. That's the compromise, right?
That's the compromise. I think they have more than that. I think ultimately the compromise, such as it is money. I think with Trump, it's always about money.
Yeah.
So there's the theory about Rosneft, which was also in the Steele dossier, which is that Rosneft, which is the state-owned oil company in Russia, was going to sell off 19% of its equity to foreign investment, and that Trump would be given a commission on the sale. Often people misreport it as Trump would be given 19%, which is way more money than it would require. And that came to pass. Rosneft did sell. They sold 19.5% of it. And it's weird that that detail was in the dossier. The commission that Trump was supposed to receive was mentioned. So I calculated that a commission like that would be something like $260 million.
Wow.
Which is also, if you look up that number, there's Deutsche Bank numbers around that amount dealing with Trump. So again, we don't know. We'll wait and see. But that was in the dossier also. And I think, personally, if I had to guess, I think that has more potential for compromise than any sort of sex tape.
Rosneft, so we talk about 72 and 74 in the context of the Watergate Hotel. Mm-hmm. But the Rosneft deal, didn't that go down at the Mayflower? Or was that discussed at the Mayflower?
No, I don't know if it was discussed at the Mayflower.
What happened at the Mayflower?
The Mayflower was
because this should be called Mayflower. Like,
Yeah.
it was called, one was called Watergate.
Right.
This should be called Mayflower.
Mayflower is a good name for it. The Mayflower was when, basically, it was the first meeting on the campaign trail where Trump met with Sergei Kislyak, who was the ambassador, the Russian ambassador to the United States, and also, allegedly, a big spy runner for the KGB. And he's not supposed to be doing that. Foreign ambassadors are not supposed to meet with U.S. presidential candidates.
Right,
it's just not something that's done.
Right.
The meeting, there was supposed to be a smaller gathering that he was going to do, and they changed it at the last minute. Jared Kushner was his idea, working with Manafort, to change it to allow these Russians to come. Kushner had been approached by a man named Dmitry Simes, or Simis, who was in charge of I think it's called the Nixon Institute. Now it's called something else. But he was allegedly a longtime Russian spy, then Soviet spy, in the United States, very well placed. As soon as Maria Butina, as soon as that story broke, he fled. Now he hosts a game show in Russia about how great Putin is. No joke. There's pages about him in the Mueller report where Simis went and testified before Mueller and said a lot of things. He is the one who kind of helped Kushner arrange the Mayflower meeting. And Henry Kissinger, I believe, is the one that introduced Simis to Kushner initially. So if you want to bring Nixon back into it and bring it all the way full
Henry
circle.
Kissinger.
Yeah.
He's been in everything, hasn't he?
Yeah.
That's a character.
Yeah.
Why is he in? How old is he? He must be 200 years old.
I don't
He's in
think,
this too?
I don't think that vampires can die. I think you have to stake the heart, or they have to see the direct sunlight.
He introduced Simmons
To Kushner. Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Why ever for? Why?
I guess he thought it would be a good idea. Who knows? I mean, these little details are what we don't know. I've read that Kissinger was initially the one who introduced Kushner to Simis, and he was the one that set up this event. So, again, and then after that, the floodgates open. And after the Trump Tower meeting, which was on June 9th of 2016, after that, Kushner kind of bends over backwards to keep everything secret. Now, I think
The Trump Tower meeting
with the Russians.
That's
with,
right.
with
the woman.
Yeah, Natalia Veneliskaya. I'm not good with these saying the names.
Vetselneskaya.
There you go. You better.
I think I got it.
Yeah, I think you got it.
Okay.
After that, Kushner kind of bends over backwards to keep things secret. Like he tries to establish a back channel with the Russians at the Russian embassy, which even the Russians were like, what? They thought it was insane. And he's the only one, Kushner, he's sort of tight-lipped and secretive, and he's the only one around Trump that's like that.
Right.
The rest of them are loudmouths, and they like the sound of their own voice.
Yeah,
he's the only one smart enough.
Because that was the thing. We never knew what his voice sounded like.
Yeah,
We know he's registered to vote as a woman in New York, but we don't know what his voice sounded like.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He's given a couple speeches. There's very little on him. I mean, it's really kind of remarkable.
Yeah, he was looking for that back channel.
Yeah, and I think still is. And there's these back channel opportunities that whenever they're together, Putin and Trump sneak off. There's one translator. They destroy the notes, and then he sends Rand Paul to Russia with a letter to give to Putin directly, which is crazy.
Now, you know what, again, putting this in the context of what's going on right now
Yeah.
with Ukraine. See, that's another thing. I'll give you this transcript. Don't ask for another one.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of folks he's talked to.
Mm-hmm.
There's the server. Didn't they run Hillary into the ground about a server?
They ran Hillary in the ground about a server.
Okay, but they have a server.
Right.
That they can decide what goes into the server and what doesn't.
Yes.
Not under normal conditions. That's not what it's used for. So you've got conversations with Putin.
Mm-hmm.
You've got transcripts with Putin, and God knows who else.
MBS from Saudi Arabia,
Jesus.
notably. Yeah. And
Man.
probably Erdogan from Turkey as well, I would guess. Although I haven't read that name being on the super top secret server.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'll be honest with you. If MBS, I just wouldn't even pick up the phone. I'd be telling him I'm busy. I just didn't want to be anywhere in the vicinity on the phone with him for anything to be interpreted the wrong way. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
I mean, the problem need to be the phone to anyone, but MBS, no, man, I'll call you back. Just, that'd be the transcript. What's this transcript? President Marx said, I'll call you back.
The messages were going solar. Yeah.
Wow. This is something else.
Yeah.
So you've also been looking at Turkey
Yeah.
as
A
well.
little bit, yeah.
Is there a relationship between Turkey and Russia?
Yeah, Turkey and Russia are allied, certainly in what's going on in Syria. They want us gone, and they want to take it over themselves and do what they will. As we're sitting here, Trump has basically greenlit genocide of the Kurds, which is just beyond awful. Every day or every week, certainly, that goes by, we think there can't be a new bottom, and he seems to always find a way to make things more horrible. So, yes, there is a relationship between Erdogan and Putin. They're both strong men. And MBS also, the Saudi dictator. So I think that what's going on with Turkey has something to do with the murder of Jamal Khashoggi a year ago, because he's the journalist, longtime Saudi journalist, cozy with the royal family, not a muckraker by any means, kind of more of an establishment Saudi journalist. He's fine. MBS takes over. He starts writing bad things about Trump, and then suddenly they take him off the Saudi media. Not because he's writing about the royal family, because he's writing about Trump. So he goes to the United States. He comes to Washington. He starts working for the Washington Post. And it's at that point that he gets basically captured and killed. And the place where that happened was at the consulate in Istanbul, in Turkey. So,
Jesus.
and Erdogan was the guy who initially led the investigation, quote unquote. So there's been conflicting reports, but we're pretty sure that the CIA had advanced knowledge that something was up, which means that Kushner and Trump should have had advanced knowledge that something was up.
They know everything.
Yeah. Well, Kushner is also sort of the quasi de facto ambassador to Saudi Arabia. He and MBS are
Right.
tight.
Right.
He went there.
Boys.
They hung out. They, did their thing.
Cool
and then,
guys.
Yeah. And Kushner needed to raise, I think, $1.2 billion with a B to finance the loan on this 666 Fifth Avenue here in Manhattan, not far from where we are.
666, not a coincidence, y'all.
Yeah,
Okay,
not a coincidence, and which he bought because he's such a great businessman. Right at the worst possible moment, right before the real estate collapse. So he needs this loan. He goes to Saudi Arabia. He maybe gives. There's only one source about this story, but he gives MBS, according to one source. This is a story in The Intercept. Information about who in the royal family has been critical, and MBS immediately does a purge of the royal family, locks some people up, stuff like that. And then a couple months later, Kushner quietly gets a loan from Qatar, and then later gets a loan. So there's all this weird stuff going on there. And, why is Khashoggi murdered? What's the point of it? We don't know. There's a lot of things we don't know. But Turkey is definitely involved because it happened in Turkey. Erdogan knows the details. The CIA, by the way, has concluded that MBS is responsible, which is not something that Trump and Kushner seem to care about or acknowledge.
Yeah.
So-
Even Pat Robertson is calling him out for that.
Yeah.
Which is we're really in an apocalyptic moment, aren't we?
Yeah. I saw that too, and I said, wow, this is dogs and cats living together.
So Erdogan actually, this happened on his soil.
Yes. I mean, it was in the consulate, but it was in Turkey. So
It was in Turkey.
Yeah.
And he originally investigated it.
Yeah, he sent people to, or I don't know if it was the municipal government in there, but yeah, he was overseeing the investigation.
Well, isn't that convenient?
Yeah, yeah.
Did he ever conclude anything that would have implicated MBS himself?
Maybe. I can't remember what he concluded. If it was, there's all the reports were conflicted, but the CIA thought that MBS did it. That much I know, and I trust the CIA more than I trust the Turkish guy.
No,
There's
wait.
one more thing about Turkey before.
Please.
Mike Flynn.
Yeah, come on.
Okay, Mike Flynn, the first kind of real person, impressive person to endorse Trump during the campaign. At one time, his name was bandied about to be vice president.
That's right.
Mike Flynn, who dined in Moscow with Putin and with Jill Stein in 2015.
That's right. He's sitting at the table, y'all, in that famous picture.
Just hanging out, exchanging it, whatever he's doing. He's lobbying for Turkey or for interests close to the Turkish government in 2016 and did not say so. So he's trying to have...
That was one of the charges against him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if they copped to that charge. I think they just got him online with the FBI, but he was lobbying for Turkey, so he knows what's going on really intimately in that area. And certainly the Kurdish issue was something that, I always say Erdogan, I'm pronouncing it wrong, I know, that he wants.
I don't know. I get it confused, too.
Yeah, no, you said it nice last.
Well, I've heard both.
Okay.
I think Erdogan is right, but
Yeah, I think Erdogan is right.
Forgive me, y'all, if I'm wrong about that.
I'm doing it like phonetically, which is always wrong. So Mike Flynn, don't sleep on Mike Flynn, because he was named to be National Security Advisor, which means Trump gave him the keys to the nation's greatest secrets, even though Obama told him not to. The acting Attorney General Sally Yates told him not to. Congress told him not to because the guy was dirty, and Trump did it anyway.
So, as the House Judiciary Committee is seeking the grand jury information in the Mueller probe, there could very well be something in there that might be revealing as to the relationship between Trump and Turkey and why he makes some of the decisions he's making right now.
That is not beyond the realm of possibility, sure, yeah, because Flynn's in there. I mean, he's was interviewed and was a source and is in there. And they're going to get those documents eventually. It's not a tenable legal argument that they're making. They're trying to delay.
It's not tenable to say that Sirica was wrong, that all that was a mistake? What are you talking about, Greg? That's not tenable?
He can't be impeached because he doesn't like the people that are trying to impeach him. So therefore, it makes no legal sense. I mean, if you think about it logically, if Congress is going to do what it's constitutionally mandated to do, which is provide a check to the executive branch, they need to have the information to be able to investigate the executive branch. So they're definitely going to, even the hard right justices on the Supreme Court are going to laugh at this. And anybody that doesn't vote for it is crooked, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Well, you got some crooked people on the Supreme Court now.
Yeah. Roberts is not. Roberts is going to laugh at this. He's going to give...
So?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, unless you would agree, I'm sure, that there are people still fighting the Civil War, right? Okay. So if people still fighting the Civil War over 100 years ago, I'm sure you would also concede there are people still fighting the Watergate impeachment.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's where some of this comes from.
Yeah.
And my own theory is, as with any addict, see, an addict says, I control the alcohol or the drug. It doesn't control me. Mm-hmm. And it's not till you get to AA and NA that you realize what's really going on with yourself. And so you think you can beat it. I can beat impeachment. Nixon should have beat Watergate. It was a botched up job. It's all they ever said. So, who are the enablers for trying to beat that but Roger Stone with the tattoo on his back?
Right.
Why would a man have a tattoo on his back, folks? Who's going to see that? That's kind of enabling. You can beat this. He should have beat it. As a matter of fact, the popular theory now is if he had had Fox News, he could have beat it.
Right.
But the problem is Fox News is now proving that wrong because their own polls say people want him removed.
Yes.
They can't even fake a poll.
Yeah.
And they have the teeniest ounce of integrity to even put it out there. So if you get a Kavanaugh and a Gorsuch, you know what Clarence Thomas is going to do. If you get one of them to agree, yeah, Nixon shouldn't have been it, that grand jury information, he might beat it. You don't think so?
We'll see. I actually, Gorsuch seems okay. Ideologically, I don't like him, but I don't think he's corrupt. I think he's just...
You don't think he's corrupt? Okay.
I think he's a hard right, kind of smart guy. I think he's qualified for the job in a way that Kavanaugh is markedly not.
Well, there's even some speculation from the hearing the other day that he might be the swing vote in the case when it comes to LGBTQ job discrimination. So So I'm saying you may be right. You're not the only one that is speculating that's how he might be.
Yeah.
Based upon what he said in that case. Mm-hmm. But this is like Bush v. Gore.
Yeah.
I don't trust the guys. That's why elections are so important, folks. Where does this end up? Because it seems to me there's still so much we don't know. It's like this isn't winding down. It's ramping up.
Right. I say periodically something will happen big, and I'll say to my wife, this is it now. He can't. It's going to be over soon. And she says, you've been saying that for 2 years. And it's true because I get to a point and I'm like, he can't survive this. When the Mueller report came out, I said, he can't run. This is a 80-page indictment. Like, how can he run possibly with this? And, that
But they spun it.
Came and went. Yeah, Bill Barr, who is a traitor of the highest order, and I hope spends the rest of his life in prison because he is more responsible, even more at this point than McConnell, for delaying all the tactics and stuff like that. But as for where it ends up, I think he's going to resign. I do not think that Trump will ever allow himself to be paraded on trial in front of the Senate if he thinks he's going to lose, because he can't control that narrative. I think he's going to at some point say, well, I tried and the American people don't deserve me and blah, blah, blah. Or he'll blame the deep state, he'll blame Hillary, he'll blame Obama, and then he'll maybe get on a plane and go to Moscow and live happily ever after. I don't know. There's a big argument on Twitter. Some people were like, no, he's a fighter. They're going to have to drag him away kicking and screaming. And I say, we have 70 years of evidence that this guy is a wimp and that the first sign of trouble, he caves and leaves.
Yeah.
He takes his ball, he goes home. He's a coward of the highest order. So I don't see him having the courage to stick around, especially when he knows he must know he's going to lose.
But trial in the Senate, the leader of the Senate is a Russian asset too.
I'm not sure if McConnell is a Russian asset per se.
His name is Moscow Mitch.
As much as I'd like to think so, and there's a lot we don't know about him, but McConnell is not a Trumpist. He might have ties with Russia and certainly with China through his wife, for sure, but he's not a Trump guy, I don't think. So at the first inkling that he thinks that he has to do something to survive himself, he's going to do it. He's going to happily throw Trump under the bus. He already said he was going to allow the vote to happen.
The trial
and the vote on impeachment if it gets to his
But he
desk.
walked that back a little bit too, though.
In a fundraising email. So I don't, of course he's going to send a fundraising email out. But I think when push comes to shove, and remember, this isn't going to happen tomorrow. This is going to happen in a few months after we have hearing after hearing after hearing, where it becomes glaringly obvious that Trump is a criminal.
His relationship with Russia, Moscow Mitch's relationship with Russia, is independent of Trump's relationship with Russia?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Russia is smart in that it hedges its bets. It's going to try to touch as many people as it can.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Recruit as many assets as possible.
And when we say recruit asset, there's various ways of doing that. It's not necessarily that they have a meeting with somebody and say, you're going to do this or else. Sometimes it's something as simple as, we're going to use all of our bots that we have on Twitter and Facebook, and we're going to boost the campaign of Bernie Sanders, or we're going to now boost the campaign of Tulsi Gabbard or whatever. They do things like that, too. They do whatever they can think of to do in order to sow chaos and to get somebody that, maybe would be more amenable to them than other people.
What name did you just mention?
Tulsi Gabbard.
So you believe she's doing this too?
Well, the bots are certainly doing it. And the Russian bots are pro-Tulsi on the Twitter for sure.
The bots.
I don't know that
the bots tweeted me. They attack me and say they aren't bots.
Yeah,
that's what the bots say to me. So help me out, Greg. What do I say back to them?
Nothing. Block them. Block the bots is the thing to do. And it's better to not even bother engaging. The other interesting thing about Tulsi Gabbard is that she grew up in a cult, which I think people don't realize. I didn't realize it until fairly recently. And the guru, who was the leader of the little cult that she was in Hawaii, is a virulently homophobic guy.
Yeah.
Crazy homophobic.
Yeah. Is Jill Stein, does she have culpability?
I think so. I mean,
that picture's pretty damning.
The pictures, there's also a video of her in Moscow talking this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
People gave her money for the recount. Where'd that money go?
Yeah.
I don't know. And I get why people supported her. People support third-party candidates. 2016 was a very, very weird election. It was almost a perfect storm of crazy. because you have Trump doing his thing and then Hillary, and I love Hillary and I'm very pro-Hillary and have been before it was cool. You know, she's got baggage. She brought a lot of baggage to the table. She was the target of 30 years of attack by right-wing media and whoever to not like her. So, you know, you have these two candidates, stuff is going to come out. I think this election, whoever winds up running, is going to be a lot more cut and dried, and we'll see kind of a resumption of normality. Although Hillary did win by 2.8 million
Well,
votes.
she did, and 30 years of power suggestion would affect anybody.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't understand the extent of this during the season. There was no show that had Jill Stein on more than mine, as someone who's always supported, you know, third-party movements.
Sure.
Even if they don't have a chance of winning, I think it's important to have a discussion. If I had seen that picture and known about Russian interference, the Obama White House wanted to tell us, but then when Moscow Mitchell wouldn't sign on, they didn't want to look like they were putting their thumb on the scale. Unfortunately, Obama reads too much history, so he decided to follow in the footsteps of LBJ, who didn't want to out Nixon for the Paris peace, sabotaging the Paris Peace Accords.
Right.
LBJ made a mistake. That was a mistake. Obama not going ahead and confronting it and calling it out was a mistake.
Yes.
Because we paid the price twice. It's the same thing. Two impeachable people, two break-ins of the DNC. One a physical one a virtual one in terms of cyberspace.
Right.
Two obstructions by two administrations. Two withholdings of witnesses' testimony. And then Doofus gets on TV the other day and says, the best stenographers, perfect transcript, word for word, comma for comma. And I was like, oh, I'm writing up my subpoena. Are you sure you want to say that really exists? Because you gave us a readout or a summary, but you're bragging about these beautiful stenographers. Okay, so let's give it all up. What's all in the server? He's going to fight that, and you right back to the Watergate tapes. It's the same thing.
Yeah, no, the Nixon template is, he's playing it right to the T.
Because I believe Roger and them advised him, this is what we should have done in 74 we didn't do. You're going to do it right.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, Trump doesn't drink. But, I mean, he's a dry drunk.
Yeah.
He may as well be addicted to something because that is insane. Even the judge said in court the other day, you know, you're making an extraordinary, I mean, she was trying to be tactful. You know, this is really an extraordinary argument that you're making. No, Judge Chirica shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Well, you're a Hillary fan. I'm sure you're aware. She was on the Watergate staff that wrote the memo.
Yeah, I saw that.
That made the argument
to
impeach Nixon. They used her memo against her husband, obviously. So it's a lot of stuff. We will see what happens with this. He'll probably seek exile in Moscow, won't he?
Can you imagine what would happen if he went and lived in Russia after this?
Yeah, I'm sure
it would just be crazy. I mean, we would all, I can't even, my brain would explode. My head would, it actually kind of explodes thinking about it. And the fact that it's even a possibility is also insane.
You believe Melania and the kids are dirty too?
Well, the kids are dirty, for sure. I mean, Junior and Ivanka, he tries to protect Ivanka a little bit more. You know, Kushner and the other one, Gums, Eric. Yeah, they're dirty. They all did things, and they continue
What'd
to
you
do
call
things.
them?
Gums.
What is it? Is that
This is his teeth. I think Molly Jong-Fast made that up, just to shout out. But, yeah, I think they're dirty. Melania doesn't interest me very much, honestly. I know people are, like, sort of fascinated with her, and I find her to be the most boring character.
No, there was even a story the other day that said she seems to show no interest or concern about her husband's impeachment. That was a headline somewhere I saw.
Yeah.
She's like unfazed. Well, you know, the word on the street is here she was leaving him anyway.
Yeah, I heard that too.
You know, and it may have already happened because it was Freudian when he said, when they were in the room talking about opioids, pretending to be concerned about that. She has a son. Now, you say you refer to your kid in common as the other parent's child exclusively when you're, you know, beefing with the child and the mother, or there's some separation or divorce looming, or it's already happened. Yours, because it would happen, you know, you called other parent. I've done it. I'm divorced. I'm raising a son by myself. I'll call her. You know what your son did today?
Yeah, but that's different. That's a
you know, but he did it in open. She has a son. He said that. So that to me connotes some separation.
Yeah, it's like, he might as well have sung the end of Billie Jean. The kid is not my son.
That's a good one. Can I use that?
Please. Yeah.
That's great. So what's going to happen, man? What do you think?
I try not to talk about timelines because I always get them wrong. But what I had heard was the summer was going to be the summer, and once Labor Day came back, they were going to start the impeachment thing, which happened. They were going to ramp it up so that by November, by the time everyone is at Thanksgiving talking at the table, it was going to be kind of a big deal. And they would use that momentum and kind of, do it maybe in the new year. But now with the Ukraine thing, I think
helped him out.
It fast-tracked it. Now Pelosi seems to be like, all right, we're going to do this right now. I mean, not right now. It's good.
Right,
they still have to investigate it. They still need to have hearings and stuff to build up perception. But, why wait? Because the thing is, every day that this guy is in office is another day that something horrible can happen. So we need to get rid of him. And it's almost, you watch the Democratic debates and they're talking about whose health care plan is better. And they're arguing about this arcane and it's, health care, this and that. Trump is the ogre on the bridge. Until he's gone, nothing is going to happen. Nothing. So everybody's just got to focus on removing him from office.
I would agree. But he's helping them.
Yeah. He's self-impeaching, as Pelosi said.
Well, and Maxine Waters said it before she did. He was going to impeach himself. He was going to lead us to impeachment.
Yeah.
He's probably going to do some more stuff before Thanksgiving. Some more stuff is going to come out.
Oh, absolutely.
He's going to do more stuff before this podcast is even posted.
Yeah, yeah.
By the time y'all hear this, there'll probably be more stuff he has done. It's just a never-ending sieve.
The other thing that I want to point out, because again, we haven't mentioned his name for the entire podcast, which is, I think, what he would prefer, is Mike Pence is also guilty. He also has some complicity here.
All right, come on.
He basically, he knew about the Ukraine stuff. There's compelling evidence. Maddow did a show last week about it. There's compelling circumstantial evidence that he knew what was going on with that. He certainly knew about Mike Flynn. He was the chair of the transition team, which if you Google Trump transition team, you'll see the list of people and your jaw will drop because it's almost like a list of future felons, right?
Yeah.
He was Manafort's choice. He was an unpopular governor in financial trouble.
Was going to
lose. Manafort basically told Trump, oh, the plane isn't working. We have to stay in Indiana one more night. Hey, why don't you meet this guy, Mike Pence?
Yeah.
So this is Manafort, a guy who is so bad, who's so corrupt that he's actively treasoning with Giuliani from prison.
Yeah.
It's a compelling case for capital punishment, honestly. I don't like to say, but you have this Russian mobbed-up guy, Manafort, picking Pence and installing him there. So I bring this up because it's not as simple as removing Trump and getting Pence, because Pence is also, whatever Trump did, Pence probably also did. So how do you handle that? And fortunately, Nixon has given us the template, which is the vice president has to resign first and be replaced by somebody palatable, not connected.
That's
maybe
right.
Mitt Romney. I hope not Nikki Haley, because she terrifies me as a candidate in the general.
So Pence should resign first.
That's what I've been predicting. I mean, I don't know. But if we go by the Nixon thing, yes.
That's very interesting, because I remember watching it very closely. I remember the TikTok. Pence had until noon on a Friday to declare for re-election as Indiana governor. And I remember like 24 hours before, because Trump changes, he's all over the place, ADHD. Mm-hmm. I might pick somebody else. I might pick Christie. He was doing a thing. And then all of a sudden, I'm sure Manafort and somebody said, no, this dude's out on limb now. We got him out here. He can't go. He can't make his noon deadline. So you got to you got to pick him. That's his parachute out of the governorship, because he wasn't going to get reelected governor of Indiana. You're right, because Agnew resigned. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's what what's going to happen.
That's what I think. I mean, if McConnell is smart about the Republicans staying in power, they want this to happen sooner rather than later so they can have some chance in 2020.
So the incentive for all of that is, if you don't do it that way, you've got President Pelosi.
Yep.
Because she's third in line.
That's correct.
And we know they don't want.
Yeah.
That's worse to them. That's worse than treason. Treason is better than President Pelosi.
Right. Yeah.
So what's next for you? Are you going to continue to follow this or write about it?
I can't. I feel like obviously I'm exhausted by it because I'm on Twitter all the time and I'm following stuff. And my role in this is to try to take the dots and connect them and explain to people what's going on and how things fit into the overwhelming story, and also to remind people about stuff that we have forgotten because there's so much criminality that I just forgot. You know?
But again, is it too complicated for the Democrats to risk using it in this inquiry? Now, I think they want to. It's logical. Throw the whole kitchen sink. That's why they're seeking the Mueller grand jury information. Why seek the information if you're not going to use it?
Right.
But is it worth it, or does that get to be too confusing?
I think it depends on what's in the taxes. What I had heard is that they were waiting for the tax returns. And when they had the tax returns, that was going to show money laundering.
Jesus.
And then they were going to impeach. That's what I heard, and I have no reason to doubt that that's true. If the taxes were good, he would have released them by now.
Yeah.
There's obviously stuff in there that's not.
I'll give you this call. You can have a call, but you can't have the taxes. Here's the call.
Exactly.
And he just ran to give us the call.
Yeah, yeah. So it's almost like a deflection. You can have this, the jaywalking ticket, and I'm going to keep the. So I had heard they were waiting on that. And depending on what they obviously know more than I do, even though people are like, Pelosi doesn't know, Schiff doesn't know. They know, all right? They know. Pelosi knows what she's doing. So I'd like to reassure everybody on that front. If they know what's in there, and if it's as bad as what we think it might be, it's going to behoove us to wait, because I don't think it's going to take that much longer anyway. So if they go another couple weeks with the Ukraine business and more stuff comes out, and now there's more whistleblowers, and the more whistleblowers there are, that will beget still more whistleblowers, and we'll have a symphony of whistling.
Or whistleblowers, more sexual assault.
Yeah, that
victims.
book came out too. There are up to almost 4 dozen.
Yeah, so you're at that number is rising. Do Republican senators get it before Mitch does? Is there a point when they say, hey, we got to fish or cut bait here?
I think, yes. McConnell, I think, controls that process. I think when McConnell says it's time, they'll deploy it in some way that makes sense. Like McConnell might tell Sass and Rubio and whatever, okay, you guys go and be for it now. And then everybody else in the more red districts can take a little more time, similar to how I think the Democrats did with the impeachment thing. Like you had some people that were out in front and other people held back, and I think that was almost by design. I think it's the same thing. Mitch, I think, ultimately controls the process. The other key element is Fox News, because at some point they're going to turn on Trump. They have to.
Some of them already have.
Yeah, but I think that the company as a whole, I think Murdoch.
So Paul Ryan is telling Lachlan to pull back.
Yeah.
And see, my theory, Greg, has always been Ryan's, McConnell's, Romney's, all these other Republicans. He really hijacked their party.
Yeah.
He wasn't the person that they chose.
No.
I think they all were kind of hoping it would be Jeb. I'm glad it wasn't Jeb either, but they wanted Jeb. So, and they all have personal ambition. All of them want to be president.
Right.
If there's a sliver of an opening and you can sock it to this dude, and then Putin is probably cultivating other assets, because we all watch movies. Folks, his header on Twitter, on his profile, is From Russia with Love. We play that song all the time on the show. I sing it too sometimes too. If you watch all of that, when your asset is burned, you're burned. It's disavowal.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible. I mean,
Right. Then you have to pick new people. You mentioned Paul Ryan, and there's another interesting character. Here's a guy who was Speaker of the House, right? And then he resigns, doesn't run for re-election to spend more time with his family. The dude is, 45, 46 years old? Like he's my age. Who does that? If you're an ambitious politician. If Paul Ryan wanted to, he could have led the impeachment inquiry and been president right now.
That's interesting.
But he didn't. Instead, he chose to just back away.
So what they have on him?
I don't know. Money stuff, because remember there was that tape that they recorded where Kevin McCarthy says, I heard that Putin pays Trump and also Dana Rohrabacher, and Paul Ryan says, shh, no, keep it in the family, or whatever he says.
Yeah.
That was a tape that was recorded, and so
brought
these guys know more than they let on.
Amazing. Folks, if you want the primer to really get a clear understanding and be well-versed, so that when you're out and about and the holiday season is approaching, you can be the conversationalist at the holiday parties if you read Greg's book, right? That's the intention. It's sound well-informed, win friends, influence people.
It's also a good thing to give your person that watches Fox News that you don't want to argue with.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good idea. Give them that so they can get Dirty Rubles. Find it at dirtyrubles.com. Greg, thank you, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Talking to us. Yeah,
It's a
this
pleasure.
is great. And this is very, very helpful. All right, thank you. Thank you for listening to Make It Plain and Get Woke. Remember to listen, like, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Also, subscribe to Make It Plain and Get Woke Daily. Check out makeitplain.com to subscribe. If all minds are clear, it has been made plain.